There exists an infamous American film company called The Asylum. And basically, how they make money is they will take big Hollywood movies and then they will make their own version of it for an extremely small amount of money. And it'll have either the same title or a slightly different title. And they'll pretend that it's the original movie or it's like a sequel or a spin off or something like that. And they try to trick people into buying the cheaper version of the movie, thinking that it's the original movie, and they make money that way. Now, recently, they've kind of leveraged their camp factor with Sharknado and some other stuff, but they've produced a lot of stuff such as The Day the Earth Stopped instead of The Day the Earth Stood Still, Paranormal Entity instead of Paranormal Activity, Mega Piranha instead of Piranha 3D. What's slightly interesting is they will sometimes take what the work was originally based on, like Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull became Alan Quartermain and the Temple of Skulls or something like that, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, so that's what they do, and they make their money that way. And it was only a matter of a time before we had something similar that would happen with the Ukraine cinematic universe, that we would get a low budget discount spin-off. And it's especially fun because Zelensky was the main actor of a show called Servant of the People, which I forget if it was a low budget discount spin-off of House of Cards or Yes Minister or both. And so we're having the discount spin-off in the form of this man. Albin Kurti, the current prime minister of Kosovo, who has compared himself to Zelensky. The Serbians have compared him to Zelensky. And he has kind of the same master plan as Zelensky, but in a much lamer way. So, we have the discount, rip-off, asylum version of the Russo-Ukraine war brewing, which will be the Kosovo War. Or the Kosovo War Take 2, Take 3. Because the third one's just never as good. But before we get into this, let's take a step way back. So for most of its history, the Balkans have been under the control of foreign powers. After the big Slavic migration in, a lot of the Balkans, at least outside of Romania and Greece and Albania, has been Slavic majority and has been predominantly, outside of Croatia, of course, Orthodox Christian. And at various points in time, these have either been occupied or been vassals of the Ottoman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, the Austro-Hungarians, sometimes random barbarian tribes like the Magyars or something like that. And they very seldom enjoyed independence for a very long period of time. Now, Russia's always kind of been the odd man out in Europe, being a large Slavic Orthodox country. After the Byzantine Empire fell, you didn't really have any other large, powerful Orthodox countries, and most of the Slavic peoples were part of various other states, be it German states or, like I said, Ottoman Empire. So once you had nationalism begin to develop, and in Slavic countries, nationalism has always been very tied to religion, be it Catholicism in the case of Croatia, or Orthodoxy in a lot of Eastern Orthodox Slavic countries, to the point where you will have a lot of people, probably in a lot of these countries, the plurality is secular Orthodox or even atheist Orthodox. High church religions tend to be a lot more sticky than low church ones are. So Spain is probably, like, for instance, plurality Catholic atheist. Whereas people will not believe in it, they will not practice it, but for cultural reasons, they will continue to identify with it. And Russia, for very obvious reasons, has been seen as the world leader of Orthodox Christianity. And this is a role that the czars took upon themselves, saying they were the third Rome, they're the guardian of Eastern Christians. And that was used as a justification for a lot of their wars against the Ottomans. And when the various Orthodox peoples began to rise up against the Ottomans in the Balkans, Russia would intervene either militarily or politically or provide them with weapons. And this has led to a lasting sense of goodwill between the peoples. The Serbs correctly view the Russians as being their benefactors and the ones who played a very crucial role in their independence. Also, recall that Russia coming to Serbia's aid was what started World War One, and these feelings are, I think, from my understanding, also prevalent in Greece, Bulgaria. I'm not so sure about Romania. Now, a lot of this has become kind of muddled over the years when, like, Moldova got taken. The whole Soviet era is kind of complicated because it's hard to know how much people blame the Soviet Union, um, and if there's any differentiation between that and Tsarist Russia and the Russian Federation. But my point is, there's always been a lot of Russophilia in this area, and despite the whole Warsaw Pact era, Russia's seen as the anti-imperialist power, and this is particularly the case when it comes to Serbs, who have traditionally been very Russophilic because the Russians played such a role in their independence. And this has long been an issue with the rest of Europe whenever they decide that Russia's evil, because you have this not particularly large, but this very pro Russian Orthodox Slavic country that's kind of in the middle of everything. It's in between kind of Central Europe and Southern Europe. It's kind of it is where it is, and you had the Yugoslav period, and the whole area is just very ethnically confusing because you have like Serbo-Croatian, Montenegrin, which is the same language, but they pretend it's separate languages, and the main difference is religious. It gets very confusing. But my point being is you have an Orthodox Slavic, pro-Russian population in Serbia who is deeply despised by NATO and the rest of Europe for these various reasons, and this has obviously gotten worse over time as Russia more and more becomes well, not an international pariah, but hated by Europe and the boogeyman. So, when Yugoslav began to fall apart, the various portions of the country declared independence along ethnic lines. The thing to keep in mind, though, and one of the focuses of this video that we're only getting to in 7 minutes in, is the whole concept of ethnic self-determination. So I'm going to just come out and say it. The whole thing is kind of nonsensical because it's a bit like democracy, where it's only democracy when your party wins. It's only ethnic self-determination when it's beneficial to you. Because the people who recognize Kosovo independence will not recognize that Crimea wants to be part of Russia, that the two Donbass republics want to be independent or part of Russia. It's extremely biased in the way that it's recognized. That was one of the big issues after World War One, where the German parts of the Austro-Hungarian Empire wanted to unite with Germany, but they were not allowed to because people wanted to punish Germany. You had the Republic of German Austria that contained Austria, and then the Sudetenland in the parts of Bohemia that were majority German. So, during the Yugoslav wars, like I said, more and more of the country broke off. It's interesting to note that it was not really on ethnic lines; it was on, I think, territorial administrative lines, which is also the issue that you had with Russia, where there are majority Russian areas of the Baltic states, Ukraine. I think there was Russian majority areas in Kazakhstan, and it was not divided along ethnic lines; it was divided along administrative lines. So that left to a lot of situations where you had large minorities of Russians or other people in different countries. Probably the most egregious example of this is the Republic of Srpska. Now, if we look at Bosnia and Herzegovina, like half the country is the Republic of Srpska, not Serbia, Srpska. And if you look at it, you're like, well, a lot of this seems to be bordering Serbia. So, like, when the country broke apart, why didn't the Serbian majority areas join Serbia? And it's like, well, it's just they couldn't, because national self-determination meant that the parts of Serbia, the Serbian majority areas had to join Bosnia Herzegovina because of reasons. Even though this area is 83% Serbian, and then we have some other Slavs in here, and Bosniaks are only like 13% of the population. This has to be part of like this Bosniak state because of reasons. So that got taken away despite being a Serbian majority because we believe so much in national self determination. So that happened. Montenegro obviously declared independence in a referendum. I don't think Serbia really contested that much. But this brings us to the whole issue of Kosovo, which was a majority Albanian region of Serbia. Now, once again, if we look at what the initial demographics were, you might notice something. You might say, hey, wait a minute. There's this Serbian majority area in northern Kosovo that's kind of separated from the rest of it. Why does that part that's Serbian majority and doesn't want to be part of Kosovo? Why is it part of Kosovo? Because national self-determination is based on arbitrary administrative divisions. It's not based on ethnicity. It's not based on religion. It's just that just happened to be part of the province of Kosovo, so it has to be part of the state of Kosovo. So Kosovo declared independence, I believe, let me just double check, in 2008. Now, there is this narrative that is extremely misleading that 101 out of 193% of United Nations member states recognize it. Now, if we look at who actually recognizes it, we will notice that an overwhelming proportion of the world's population does not recognize it. Russia, China, India, Indonesia, Brazil. The only real, I guess, Pakistan, America, Germany, and France, and the UK are the major countries that recognize it. Nigeria doesn't. The vast majority of the world's population that does not recognize Kosovo, and for good reason, because they don't want to start the precedent, as is the case with Spain, that random parts of the country can just declare independence whenever they want to, and that this is completely permissible under international law. So, like I said, if you look at it, pretty much any country other than Canada that has a issue with separatism, I don't know why Belgium, I guess because it's Belgium, they're the EU's bitch, but any country that has separatist issues tends to not recognize Kosovo, or who's allied with the BRICS or Russia and China. So majority don't recognize it. They think it's part of Serbia. It's this ongoing issue. NATO sent in there's already a mission there, but they basically increased their force. And they're kind of occupying Serbia. So you're in this state where the Serbian government cannot exercise control over something that they consider legally part of Serbia, and that the vast majority of the world's states representing the world's population considers to be part of Serbia. And they're talking about how we need to send in more NATO soldiers. Yeah, they're going to be sending more people. So a lot of people consider this to be a foreign occupation because they are there to basically prevent Serbia from exercising control over it. And once again, the Serbian majority parts of it were not given a choice. They aren't allowed to reunite with Serbia. They have no ethnic self-determination. And basically what it comes down to is Serbs are Russophilic. Europe hates Russia. So therefore, Serbia has no right to self-determination because Russia bad and people who like Russia are bad. Maybe that's overly simplistic, but I think that does very much kind of summarize it. So this brings us to the current crisis. So the Kosovo government, which is run basically entirely by Albanians, decided that they were going to hold municipal elections. They were going to hold municipal elections, particularly in northern Kosovo and the Serbian majority areas. So the Serbs said, we're not going to take part in these elections. These elections don't have ethics in video game journalism. These elections are not ethical. We're just not going to take part in it. And so we had one of the lowest rates of voter turnout in world history, where we had in some areas 3%, in one area 1%. Of it, only about 13 Serbs actually participated. Um, so basically, Albanians won the election in all these areas, and then the government of Kosovo said, "Well, this was a legitimate election. Electoral fraud, as we've seen in America, does not exist. Low voter turnout of 1% does not delegitimize the votes of this. The fact that only obviously two Serbs actually voted in this election, that doesn't matter. We're going to send in the police force and we're going to try and install these mayors." Now, interestingly enough, the various European countries actually told them to not do this. Like America and the EU were like, "Look, guys, you can't do this. It's crazy. If you're going to go in and do this, it's going to lead to a crisis. We're already like we've already sent literally everything to Ukraine. If Serbia decides to invade Kosovo, we literally don't have any. No, obviously they have a weapon, but you get my point. They don't want to have to deal with this other thing. So the Kosovo like government's 4D chess plan is what they're going to do is they're going to try to impose martial law. They're going to try to militarily occupy or put under police state the various northern parts of Kosovo, and they're going to try to force the hand of the Serbian government. Now, the Serbian government is very cautious. They know if they try to retake territory that is legally theirs, and that is majority Serbian, NATO is going to intervene and blow them up again because to protect national self-determination. So the Albanians are just, or sorry, well, yes, the Kosovo Albanians are just trying to basically bait Serbia into responding. Because after a certain point, if it gets to the point where they start committing atrocities, maybe they start shelling the Serbian majority areas. Where have we heard this before? Blockading them, starting low intensity warfare there. Maybe some volunteer regiments from other Muslim countries come in and start causing some crisis. Not that anything like that has happened in recent memory. Then the Serbian people will eventually be like, you have to help out the other Serbs. And then Serbia will send something in, and then Kosovo will probably just start shooting at the Serbian soldiers, and then they'll have to shoot back. And then they'll cry crocodile tears about how aggressive and evil Serbia is, that it's just like another Shoah. It's just like the 1990s again, because everything's like the 1990s in this part of the world. And then NATO will come in and blow up Serbia and force it to join the EU and force it to join NATO and destroy whatever the remaining pro-Russian sentiments are. And then Kosovo can become independent and maybe unite with Albania. And that is the plan. That is the G-slur op, if you will, of Kosovo. Now, is this going to work? I don't know, because the West is currently embroiled in like a bunch of other colored revolutions and a bunch of other like regime changes throughout the world. We have the whole Ukraine thing going, Serbia thing going. We have the conflict with China. Like, does anybody, if they were to like play an Asylum movie in theaters, would anyone really go see it? Does anyone really care about the knockoff of the knockoff that is the, dare I say, Serbian cinematic universe? Does anyone care about the Serbian cinematic universe? No, everybody just wants to focus on the Ukraine cinematic universe. There's no profit to be made here. People might even start to feel sorry for Serbia if NATO goes in and just blows the crap out of them when they really can't adequately defend themselves. And I just like to point out, so I was sarcastically alluding to it, just the how inconsistent this whole thing is. And to be fair, you can't be consistent about it because this is when you get into pan nationalism and petty nationalism, wherein every random group wants their own country and it's just not possible for a variety of different reasons. But if we're going to say that Crimea, Luhansk, oh, I can't remember. The two Donbass republics, Zaporozhye and the other place, if they weren't allowed to have referendums to join Russia, which were legitimate because electoral fraud doesn't exist, why is the Serbs in Kosovo not? Or why are the Albanians in Kosovo allowed to unilaterally declare independence, wherein the Donbass peoples are and the Crimeans aren't? And if you look at polls that were done prior to Crimea separating, I believe it was more people identified as Russian or Tatar or Crimean than did Ukrainian. The area, well, I do think that there probably was not ethics in video game journalism in a lot of these referendums. I think if you had given Crimea a completely legitimate ethical election, it would have overwhelmingly voted to join Russia. I don't know if I've ever seen anybody seriously dispute that. It always comes down to some like sleazy legalistic argument about how countries aren't allowed to have referendums to join other countries, except when they are. Because Montenegro's referendum, that was legal. Kosovo unilaterally declaring independence, that was legal. This isn't though. This just isn't. Serbia is not allowed to impose power over control over what they consider to be a legal part of their country. Uh, Even within the Serbian majority areas that I would imagine would vote 99.99% to join Serbia. And that's just kind of where we're at is we have the asylum ripoff of the ripoff. We have the attempts to start the Serbian cinematic universe to take on the Ukrainian cinematic universe, and we will just see where we will go. All I know is it's going to be a dumpster fire. It's going to be a dumpster fire. We'll see if NATO actually cares enough or anybody cares enough for this to go anywhere. But where there's a will, there's a way. So God bless everyone. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll talk again real soon.